Hey everybody, thank you so much for coming. It's great to see everybody up and attentive as we talk through a little bit about what AMP5 is. Let me give you just an overview of what we'll be looking at today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn a little bit about AMP5 or AMP software in general. We're going to talk through some of the challenges that come with video and using video as evidence. We are going to review AMP5 and see how that can address most of the challenges that we run into. And then we're going to see some of the new features that can help further address releasing video. A little bit about me, and I'll turn on my camera so you can see me. A little bit about me. So I am Blake Sawyer. I have been with AMP software since 2019. I started about a year ago as part of our support training and technical sales, specifically in North America, so US and Canada. You'll probably end up talking to me at some point. I have a background in computer science, LEVA certified as a video analyst, and then also an IAI certified video examiner. Before working here, I worked for several years at the Plano Police Department in Plano, Texas, where I was a digital media examiner. Most of what I did involved video. So I would look at about 90 video requests a month, anything from recovery to clarification to comparison to getting stuff ready for court or getting stuff ready to release to the media. If we needed to put stuff out in bulletins, I would kind of help with all of those different things. Towards the end of that time, I was helping even teach a little bit with LEVA, the Law Enforcement Video Association, Law Enforcement and Emergency Services Video Association. They're an organization that teaches how to handle and process video evidence. So I was helping officers, investigators, detectives, and just how do I get this video to play? How do I make sure that I got the best version of the video? How do I get a still out for release? And a lot of those things are problems that come up with a lot of different people. A little bit about AMP software. It's been around since 2008. It's an Italian company, as we heard, founded by Martino. We have a US subsidiary. Our mission is just to become a one-stop shop for all needs related to image and video, either analysis, enhancement, and even image authentication. So our vision is to seek justice through science, so help you get the best that you can out of your evidence by using scientifically proven algorithms and those kind of things. We're in about 90 different countries, and this is a picture that shows some of our staff in Italy. So that's a little bit about us, but it's not really why you were here. So I'll turn off my camera so you can focus on the slides. So what are some of the main problems people run into when we look at video? Most of the time, the best quality video doesn't just play. You can't put it into the player. You can't open it in VLC. You can't put it in Windows Media Player and just get to watch it. There's hundreds of different video types, and many of those require their own special player. Maybe they have their own special codec that installs. And that's not a big deal if you have one system that you're working with, if you're the store owner. But if you are a law enforcement agency or a forensic laboratory and you've got hundreds of these different players or codecs, they may interfere with each other, or they may end up giving you a little bit of issues just getting them to play, especially if you don't have admin rights to install them. It's hard to use those players just to get the cleanest images out, or maybe create a clip without losing any quality. And a lot of times those players don't give you the ability to clean up the video well. And if it does, it's not going to be something that allows you to see what you did later and be able to reproduce that. There's also a growing need just to be able to redact information to release a video, or even annotate and say, this is something that I want everyone to pay attention to. So inside of 5, we handle a lot of different proprietary video formats, but these are some of the ones that you may run into out in the field. You could get anything that has this weird extension at the end, a .dvr or a .dat. Even some save a file out as an executable so that it plays without having to install anything, but it is still playing inside of its own player. And so these can tend to be a hindrance to being able to get the best quality out. As a result, we've seen sometimes where somebody may take an image that wasn't processed correctly, or maybe they just took a screenshot from the player, or they end up taking screenshots of the screen with their phone or another camera, and that can kind of create all of these artifacts that are inside of the video. Makes it more difficult for these to be cleared up. Here you can see, because of an analog artifact, you're not able to see the logo that's on his shirt. But if we could clean up that artifact, we'd be able to see his logo quite a bit better. And yeah, sometimes we have videos that people just take pictures of the screen with their phone, or they use they use the player, but then they do a screen capture. And so you get additional information that wasn't there to start. Sometimes you do get a video that does technically play inside of a player, but it doesn't play correctly. And if it doesn't play correctly, it's not putting all of the information in the right spot at the right time. So to get around that, there's been kind of this toolbox approach in the past. So everybody has a lot of different tools to accomplish a lot of different processes. Maybe you have a video converter for all of those proprietary videos just to be able to watch them. The ones that you can't get to convert, you have to create, like using a video capture software. Then you have a special player. Maybe you have another tool to write out the video, or maybe a couple of those could be combined. Being able to do some image clarification, to be able to use a video editor to align videos, to put 2 or 3 videos together. A tool to be able to look inside of the metadata at what's happening inside of the video and how the video was created. Maybe another tool for audio redaction and another tool for exhibit creation. So I've got to create charts for court, or I've got to create slides that I need to put out. All of these in the past have been through several different tools. What we've done is we've kind of taken all of that approach and said, what if we could take all of those tools and put them inside of a single tool? And really, we have a couple of different options when that comes along, and they're geared towards the end user. So, for example, first responders, detectives, people that aren't going to spend a ton of time looking at video. Amped replay is probably the right option because it allows you to do most of the common tasks that you're going to need to do. If you need to spend a little bit more time with a video, then maybe Amped 5 is the next solution. It's going to have all of the features that are inside of replay, with a few other things to be able to do some image and better video clarification and enhancement products. DVR-Conv is kind of a middle ground. It has the same conversion engine that's inside of 5 and replay, but it automates that for everybody. And then last is Authenticate, which is an image tamper detection tool. So it's really geared towards the analyst that needs to know if an image has been altered or if there are signs that it's been tampered with. So just a quick summary about Amped 5, which is the tool we're going to focus on and spend most of the rest of the time looking at today. It has about 110 different filters to allow you to manage the whole image and video analysis, all the way from retrieval and playback to production of product for court. It's an all-in-one tool. It's got everything that you need for restoration, enhancement. We'll look at measurement a little bit. We'll look at redaction. We'll look at the reporting side of it. And it follows a scientific workflow so that you can get a full report of everything that you did, so that it can be reproducible by you and it can be repeatable by someone else. The best part is that there's no need to install any third-party software, no additional tools. Once you have 5, you have everything that you will need for your video playback, conversion, and enhancement. So just an example, if I have a single frame of video, like the one on the left, You'll notice it's dark. There's not quite enough information, but because this was a video, if I can stabilize that license plate and put it in the same spot, adjust the levels so that it's easier to see, and then average all of the noise out, then I can get a really good result of that vehicle. The good thing that it's not just me telling you what happened. I can also look inside of my AMP5 report, and I can see the version number of the software that I used. I can see any images that I create. I can create my own text inside of my report to say, this is what I did, this is what I found, and include that in a report. And then I have my full chain of everything that I did to get the best picture quality possible. Inside of that report, it also covers the exact settings that were there for every single step, so that those could be repeated, those could be reproduced at a later date. Even if somebody was using some other software to do some sort of like local stabilization or some sharpening or some frame averaging, they could go back and see my process and be able to repeat that. And then the last thing that we'll look at towards the end of today is the ability to apply redactions to remove information that's not important, not just from the video. So here you can see I've blurred out some of the video, but also with the audio. So the audio stream is something that's been new in the last couple of versions of 5, and we've worked really hard to make improvements upon this, and including the ability to remove sections of audio so that you don't have to bring something into another tool to be able to do audio redactions. So let me open up 5 so that we can see this. So one of the first things we'll do is we'll notice that if I've got a video, here I've got the theft video. It's got this weird extension at the end. It's a proprietary video. When I bring it into 5 recognizes that video format and opens it up so that I can play it right away. This is kind of a long video. It's got 40,000 frames. It's 26 minutes long. But I can see, and I can get this video to play back, and I can get to the part that I need to. Say I want to follow this guy. Where'd he go? This guy that walks around over here. If I want to put this out to somebody else, for someone else, it's really just as easy as, now that I have the video loaded, I can use this convert DVR option and take that proprietary video and do a stream copy. So it copies all the information out, puts it inside of something now that is playable for everyone else, and loads that back into 5. If I go back to my folder, you'll see I have the bowling video that was proprietary. I have this bowling video that was stream copied and converted, and I have a log that shows exactly what happened with that video to get it converted. This video will now play inside of, we'll see if it'll play inside of Windows Media Player. Yep. Which is handy. But one thing that might be a little bit more handy would be being able to just put out a small clip. So if I do a range selector, and inside of range selector, I'm gonna create my own range. So I know there's this segment of video where my subject decides to scope out the scene. I'll speed it up a little bit. Waits for his moment. And then he goes in and tries to steal a purse. And I have that clip. I want to be able to put that out. There's a couple of different ways that I can do that. The easiest and fastest way for me to do that is to use this lossless trim button that showed up in range selector. Doing that really quickly makes a clip now that only has that. Remember, it's playing a little too fast. And if I go back to my folder, now I have that trimmed version that only has the segment that I want, and I can put that out as a bulletin. I can put that out on my social media, whatever I need to, because it's going to play anywhere. One of the other great tools that's inside of 5 is not just the ability to take a proprietary video and play it back, but the ability to take this, which is an executable. And inside of that executable, it has 4 different video streams. I could put that inside of 5. 5 will go in and find those 4 video streams and carve them out as 4 individual videos that I can then bring back into 5 and get to work on. So here I have the video from the front door. Here I have the video from behind the register. And as I watch this video, we'll note that I have a robbery that happens. And if I need to release this video, I may need to redact kind of the personal information of the person that's here. Inside of 5, for a long time, we've had a couple of different ways to do that. The easiest way to do that is to use this hide selection. So presentation, hide selection, and I can draw a box around this person. If he stays in the same spot, then that box is going to stay in the same spot. But we have a couple of different tracking options as well. So either I can say static tracking and say this person's not going to change the way that he looks, or I can use dynamic tracking, which says track this from the previous frame and try and find the differences to follow. Or I have a manual tracking, which just says I want the dot to go from here to here. So real quick, just to show what manual tracking does. So here is where he is, here's where he goes. I'm going to make a new spot. And you can see that that dot then moves and doesn't care about what's in the middle of those frames. It's only going to move as that happens. If I change this to a different tracking mode, software is going to try and follow better. And I may need to make one or two more spots just to make sure it follows him and not the ground. And it does a pretty good job of following him. One of the things we'll look at towards the end is a new way that we can do this tracking and redaction, which I think is which is something that's coming soon, and it's something I think everybody's gonna really like to see. But I can do the same thing that I did before. I can create a clip. I can use my range selector. So here I just want to do this small range right here. Range selector. And if I want to keep that redaction that I put in, then I can say write video writer, and I can choose how I want to put this out. If I want to put this out as an MP4 and I want to use a really high quality, I can choose a high quality version of this MP4 to make sure I don't lose any of the information when I'm sending it out. We'll just leave it on default for now, which does a really good job of getting a playable video that has kind of a minimal loss in quality. And there's my clip. Let me make a new project. So we can get videos to play back. We can use those videos then if we want to make a redaction, if we want to create just a clip, if we want to create just a couple of images, we can do that as well. But one of the things that's really handy is the ability to process a video in real time. So here I have a video. Turn the sound off for now. But it's a little bit hard to see what's happening in this. And part of the reason is because of all this blur. So I can go in and I can reduce that blur simply by tracing the amount of blur and the direction of the blur. And this is a blur because of an encoding error. So I can change that to a replica blur instead of linear. Get the angle just right. And now I can see that text quite a bit better to be able to say what it is that was being communicated in this text. And this is a common problem because a lot of times people won't let you have their phone, but they'll let you take a picture of it. So if I have that blur, I can correct for it. I can do this compare original, so I can see this is where I started, this is where I ended up, and I can use, just by hitting the M key, I can create a bookmark. That bookmark's going to allow me to change this and say this is the clarified text message. And if I want to make a comment on this, I can come down here just by clicking on my bookmark and then coming down here and saying, this looks a bit suspicious. I think that's how you spell suspicious. And then when I go to create a report, I'll just, actually, let me do one other thing. Because in my report, I don't want to have just, in my report, I don't want to have just the blur, but I want to have information about this video so that I can come back and look at it later. So I've got all of the data, the metadata now will show up inside of my report, as well as a hash for the video, which is kind of a digital fingerprint that tells me what's happening inside of this video. That way I can tell if a file has been manipulated, the hash is going to show up differently. Save the project. So now I have that image. The text that I wrote for my bookmark shows up here. The text that I wrote for the description shows up at the bottom of my image. And then I have my full chain that shows up for my report. I'll just go to the different sections. So if I want to see more about the file information, I can see everything that shows up about the file. I can see how big the file was, how many color channels there were, the resolution, what that video was supposed to play back at. I have my hash file that gets saved inside of the report. And then everything that I did inside of the video, my motion deblurring, here's the parameters for my motion deblurring. And then I also have some documentation so that this isn't just some new and novel approach when it comes to clarifying an image, but you'll see this is the research that went into how this tool was used. And this is the documentation that shows why using a motion deblur is a valid form of image clarification. One of the things I really like about the hash file is that if I have this hash and I save this file, then the next time I open this file, it's going to rerun my hash. And it's going to make sure that the file that I'm looking at is the same file that I looked at last time. And if it's not the same file, if something's changed in it, maybe there was a copying error, or maybe somebody tried to change something inside the video, using the hash code will let me know that something has changed from the time that I opened this last time. So some things are a little bit easy because they work with an image like that motion deblur. Sometimes I have a license plate and the license plate is close, but if I stop on any of these frames, I don't quite get the cleanest version of that license plate. So what I can do is I can use a stabilization method. Here I'm going to use perspective stabilization, which is one of the newer methods of stabilization inside of 5. I'm going to draw a box around something that's in the same frame of video. I'm going to give the software a little bit more than just the license plate so that it sees a few different points of contrast. It's able to track a larger thing other than just a white box. And now when I hit apply, the software thinks for a second or 10 seconds. And now the software's gone into all 12 of these frames And it's made sure that that license plate stays in the same spot for every single frame. You see how it moves the rest of the video to make sure that that stays in the same spot. What that's going to allow me to do now is maybe I want to make that image a little bit bigger. So I'm going to use Perspective Super Resolution. And Perspective Super Resolution is now going to apply that stabilization and a resize and a frame average all at the same time to allow me to get the cleanest possible version of that license plate. Maybe I want to sharpen it a little bit, and I can allow it to refine where it puts those pixels when it resizes. And just to show the difference, I can go back to compare original so that I can always show chain of command. This is where I started. In about 5 minutes, this is where I got. Maybe it took me a little bit longer than 5 minutes because otherwise you'll get a lot more requests. But if you spend just a few minutes working on it, even if something's close or not quite there, you can usually get a better result. And this is nice because I can read that license plate. If I want to go back and maybe make 1 or 2 small changes, maybe instead of just having the license plate there, I want to put it at an angle where everybody can see it a little bit better. So I will use Correct Perspective and bring that license plate a little bit better into focus. Maybe even refine that so it's not misshapen. And now here's where I started and here's where I got, and I can prove that, and I can document all of that by making a bookmark of each of my steps. So here's a bookmark, here's a bookmark, here's a bookmark. Save the project. And when I generate my report now, each of my bookmarks that I created show up inside of 5. And all of my chain shows up there as well. So that I can repeat this, I can come back to it later, and I can use each of those if I need to. One of the things I really like about creating a report like this is I can go into that folder that I just created, and I've got the individual images. So if I only needed to send out this image to go out to patrol, now I've got that single image that I can output, that I can show, that I can email to whoever I need to. It's right there next to my report, because when I generate my report, it also exports all of my bookmarked images. And of course, I just closed that window. See if I can get my way back. Yep. So it's good for clarification. It's good for getting images and still and video clips out. But there's a lot of things that go into 5 that maybe are a little bit underutilized. So here's a case that I worked a while back. This was he employed evening workers, and one of his evening workers was getting her nails done before she went out to work that evening. And I need to be able to get some better information about this person, because what happened inside of this nail salon was the 2 of them caused a little bit of a scene, which led to an assault. And so we need to be able to identify and locate these people. First thing I can do is notice that sometimes some of my lines are not quite straight. So I can use 5 to correct for that by going in and telling it what these lines should look like. Use this, the little seam in the door. And now that the image has been corrected for, maybe I want to make the canvas a little bit bigger. And maybe I want to put him better in focus. So I'll just adjust my camera angle a little bit, not the rotate. To get the camera to where he's now in the center of it, he's more in focus, and now all of my lines are also straight. And now I can go in and maybe make a measurement to be able to tell the software what this scene looks like in 3 dimensions. I don't know that I trust that rug to be straight, but hopefully the tiles are. And if I can tell the software what this image looks like in 3 dimensions, then it can create a vanishing point. It can better understand how this scene is oriented, and I can create a measurement for that. And one thing that happened was when they were at the scene here, they did make one measurement. They made a reference measurement for how tall that door handle is. So I go to the door handle and I tell the software that from the ground to the door handle is 38 inches. Then I can make a reference measurement and say from the top of his head, that's not quite the top. Let me get him to where he's standing with all his weight on that heel. And now I can make an adjustment on my height. And I can see that he's about 70 inches tall, give or take half an inch. So if I have a reference measurement on the same plane, now I can go in and I can make that measurement, understand how tall he is, and put this out as a qualifier, be able to say this is an approximate height of the person we're looking for. All of this will then show up in my report so that I can put this out and get that to clarify. So sometimes I have a video that won't play directly, but I can do a stream copy of it, take the information out, get it so that it's playable, and I can be able then to work on that image or video. Here I've got a couple of burglars that are running off with a safe, and I want to just call attention to the people. There's a couple of different ways that I can do that. One, I can use the Spotlight tool. Spotlight is going to do the same thing that Hide Selection did, only in reverse. It's going to allow me to create a dot that I can then use to track that person. Sometimes Spotlight is not the one people want to use. Instead, maybe they want to use Add Shape. So I can add a shape by drawing a box around that person, maybe making it a circle. And we will go with yellow because yellow is unassuming. And I can do the same thing. So I can take that circle and I can create a tracking mode to be able to follow that person. And it works pretty well. Like, those are good tools. Those are tools that we've had for a little while. These are the different tracking modes that have been there for a little while. But what I want to show you is a new feature that should be coming soon to 5. It's a tool called Annotate. So if you've used Replay, then this may be something that's already familiar to you. But when I choose Annotate, now I get a list of options. So I can draw a shape, I can use an arrow, I can add text using this Annotate option. What I'm going to use first is just this magnify box. So I'm going to draw the screen, and I'm going to put this little blue dot where I want the focus to be. just so everyone's aware of where that's coming from, I'll go ahead and do this little box here that allows me to follow it. And then I can just track it, go frame by frame, or I can play the video and track. And you'll notice a couple of things that happen when I do this. So he stays in about this spot. So at this point, I'm just going to let it play. So I have that video, I have the section that I want, and I have this kind of zoomed in version so everyone can see it. I'm going to pause it there. And one thing you'll notice is this little the red line that showed up at the bottom of my display. This red line is tracking and saying how long this magnify tool is open. When I close the magnify tool, now it's kind of rendered that out. And when I hit play on my video, it followed what I did with the mouse, and it kept track of where I kept my mouse as that video was playing so that I could create an enlarged version and show what's happening from frame to frame. The same thing can happen with an arrow. So if I go to this spot before he shows up and I want to call attention to this white stripe that shows up on his pants, we'll use a different color. Remember, yellow is unassuming. And I'm just going to draw an arrow. I can go frame by frame and I can track that line. I want to move the whole arrow. I can move the whole arrow as we go. And when I'm done, now you see I've got this yellow segment here. So the yellow segment is where I drew my arrow. The red segment is where I had the box. And so each of these tools can be used. They can either be used on top of each other. You can have a single annotate if you want to follow a single subject and have all of the text and all of the images and all of the arrows follow this person. You can also use this if you were building out a chart. So in one frame, I want to call attention to one section. In the next frame, I can move that arrow and call attention to the next segment and be able to track all of those, and then export those using the right sequence to just write out each image from my video. Once I have all of this done, I can also go and use Video Writer to write out this video so that this video can now be played anywhere I want it to play. It may take a little bit of time, so we will skip that for now, so that we can look at one last feature. So I've got a video that I got through a public request. So this is a video that shows a scene, and inside of it, so inside this video, I have an interaction between the officers and a subject here in the middle. And if I want to release this, and I want to do this for transparency, to keep openness and communication going between my agency and the public, I could do that. But I may want to remove the person's name. I don't necessarily want the police yelling out the person's name so that we can hear that very often. Down at the bottom, one of the things you'll notice inside of 5 is this audio waveform that shows up. Let me do this so that I can hopefully get rid of my, nope, perfect. So I see the audio waveform, and here's the first time that she says his name. If it's hard for me to see where that starts and stops, I can hold down the control key and I can zoom into that waveform. And as I zoom in, we can get all the way in to see the actual waveform, but most of the time I'm going to use the envelope. If it's still a little bit hard to see, maybe it's a little bit quiet, see that little pop that shows up before everything, I can hold down the Shift key and make the audio waveform bigger or smaller so that I can see that a little bit easier. But what I'm going to do now is go to Presentation and Audio Redaction. And I now bring up this section over here that says, what intervals do I want to redact? What do I want to do with them? Real quick, I'm just going to choose this first segment where she says his name. I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and it's really just as easy as holding Alt and then dragging across the region of audio. And now it's redacted that. A lot of agencies don't necessarily want there to be that quiet. So what I can use is, instead of silence, I can create a waveform. That waveform is just going to make a short tone whenever I've made a redaction. And so I can go in and I can redact every single time she says his name.
Nobody wants to shoot you. I do not want to shoot you. Nobody here wants to shoot you. I just want to talk to you, but I can't talk to you with a gun in your hand. Put it down.
So here, where she says his name again, it's a little bit hard to hear because somebody's yelling at the same time, but I can come in and I can redact that segment. And I can come in towards the end. I think it's right around here.
Nobody here wants to shoot you, Steele.
And I can make one more redaction. And now I've quickly redacted all 3 times that his name is said inside of this video. Every single time that I made a redaction gets documented inside of my audio redaction filter. And when I go in and say to write my report, let me save this project. It's fine. That audio redaction filter also documents those times that I used the audio redaction filter, the exact times inside of my video that I used those. So really quickly, we can take this video that needs to go out to the public. I can redact the segments there, and using the annotate tool, I could even come in and use the hide selection to blur the person in the background. And I can go frame by frame, make sure that he stays redacted. That'll be good. And then when I write this video out, all of those settings get saved. The audio redaction is saved. The video redaction is now saved. And I can create a video clip that I can share either on social media, or I can send out to the media, or I can just have on my website for that transparency that we're aiming for. So just to recap all the things that we've talked through, because I know we covered a lot in the last 42.5 minutes. So AMP5 is a great tool for more than just getting videos to play. It does a lot when it comes to audio redaction, when it comes to video clarification, when it comes to image clarification. And each step is going to be documented so that it's repeatable. And it's going to follow a scientific workflow so that not only can I repeat it, but it's backed up by science, it's backed up by math, so that there's no question when it comes to court that this is something that was valid for me to use. You can use 5 for everything, from getting stills out to getting clips out to your image clarification, and even to getting stuff ready for court. And with these new presentation tools that are in 5 or that are being released here pretty soon, you can even quickly cover that sensitive information to get out to whoever you need to. So hopefully that was a helpful little bit of time for you. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to hang out. We can talk through them a little bit.